Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. Hello there, Internet faithful, Elwood City denizens, and children of all ages. This is Will Young. Hi. And today is a special episode of Elwood City Limits. It's hard to believe, but once again, we find ourselves at the end of an Arthur season. We always talk about the famous PBS Kids episodic television series on here, but I gotta say, if you're just jumping into the show now, I wouldn't recommend it, because we've gone on a journey here through season 2 of Arthur, and we finally arrived at the end. And before we hit up season 3 in a little bit, it's time for us to talk about season 2 a little bit more in depth. Lucas and I, of course, Lucas Mancini, my co-host, he's going to have his words on season 2 in just a few moments. Before we get going with all that, I just want to say that we will be having our thoughts on season 2. Myself, Will Young, and Lucas Mancini, and stick around till the end of the podcast. We've got something special coming up as we get into the holiday season here very soon. Lucas and I, we want to do something a little bit special this year, just for you, the Elwood City Limits faithful. So, as we did last time at the end of Season 1, we are going to give you our top 5 episodes of the season and a little bit of our thoughts in general. So, let's take it over to my co-host, Lucas, and see not only what his top 5 Arthur episodes are of Season 2, but I think he has something to say about his favorite movies of the year as well, as 2017 comes to a close. Let's see what he's got to say.
And then he wants to become the 5th Hokage. Oh, hi! Lucas Mancini here. Welcome to my humble abode. I didn't see you there. This is my top 5 Arthur episodes of Season 2. Thanks for joining me. Last year I did my top 5 NBA picks. So this year I'll just say my favorite movies this year so far were Dunkirk, Okja, The Black Coat's Daughter, and what was the other one again? Let me just pull this up here. I know there was 4. Dunkirk, Okja, The Black Coat's Daughter. I'm going to be kicking myself when I don't remember what this 4th movie was. Oh, how could I forget? It was Your Name, animated movie Your Name. Fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. All right, without further ado, here's my top 5 Arthur episodes of Season 2. Number 5, Fern's Slumber Party. Fern is a great character, which a lot of people relate to. She's unlike any other Arthur characters with her inverted, almost goth, think Winona Ryder in Beetlejuice tendencies. And so it's great for her to fill that role for kids who look up to her and relate to her. We've seen her in other episodes, like the Poetry Slam episode, but this episode really serves as her true introduction, introducing her relationship with her mom and sort of her struggles of finding friends. It's a great all-female episode, and it's great because it introduces her with a Murder on the Orient Express style mystery, with Fern sort of acting as the Sherlock Holmes type, laying out how a bracelet went missing. It's atmospheric with the lightning strikes outside. It's fun and it's intriguing. It's a must-see for all the Fern heads out there. Number 4, Arthur's Knee. Arthur, as a show, might make you laugh or even cry, but sometimes it can legitimately scare you. One such case is Arthur's Knee. It manages to be one of the most unique Arthur episodes with its children's show take on body horror. It's tense like no other Arthur episode this season. It showcases some John Carpenter-esque tension with a little bit of the Fantastic Voyage-style journey through the body thrown in. I also, besides its stylistic differences, enjoy how this episode showcases Arthur and DW's relationship with one another, sort of DW struggling with whether to tell on Arthur or not, even if it might be for his own good. Great episode, and a little bit scary. Next, it wouldn't be an Arthur list by me if it wasn't for a Buster episode. Number 3, Buster Baxter, Cat Saver. It's yet another great showcase for why Buster works so well as a character. Only Buster would be able to fill the role of wannabe hero that lets cat saving go to his head and gets optioned for movie rights, which is one of the other highlights of this episode, the fake Cat Saver film trailers and cinematic universe. It's a delightfully funny episode and another great showcase for Buster. Number 2, DW's Name Game. Arthur, at its most surreal, always manages to be entertaining, if not anything else. DW's Name Game plays out like a Jodorowsky movie. It's got some amazing imagery, like Arthur melting into a teacup or a T-Rex-esque thesaurus, and that great imagery is matched with some great writing. Clever and funny. DW's Name Game is an episode that never gets old. You can always go back to it, and you'll probably find yourself quoting it as well. Darwin, Fred. It's just a classic Arthur episode. And number 1, my favorite episode of Season 2. In my Season 1 list, I highly praised the episode Grandpa Dave's Old Country Farm, to be able to tackle the complex adult topics in an eloquent way that was honest to Arthur's tone. I love the more comedic episodes of Arthur, but when this show hits a home run with its more dramatic episodes, that's when it can really be something special. Few Arthur episodes carry as much emotional weight as Arthur's Faraway Friend, which contains Buster's grand exit as a main character for Season 2. The transition and the moment in the episode feel totally earned, and I'll never forget that shot of Arthur watching Buster's car drive away. Also, props to the show for introducing plot points with season-long consequences, unlike other similar shows where everything's pretty much left as it was by the end and beginning of each episode. It adds a level of realism that only gets you even more invested in its characters. So, that was my top 5 episodes of Season 2. Once again, if I forgot any, I really try to remember which episodes I enjoyed, so if I said in a previous episode I really liked an episode and forgot it, consider that a honorable mention. Season 2 overall was kind of hit or miss. I find the episodes that really hit well, and I really enjoyed them, but there was a lot more middle-of-the-road or forgettable episodes with Season 2, but from what I hear from Will, I'm really excited to see where Season 3 begins, so that'll probably be something we get into next week. Without further ado, I'm Lucas Mancini, and that was my top 5 favorite Arthur episodes of Season 2.
Thank you very much, Lucas. There you have it. Top 5 coming at you. And now, here's another one for you. This is Will Young here, and so it is time for my top 5 of Arthur Season 2. Let's start it off hot. Number 5 was one that made it far up the list for Lucas. It's DW's Name Game, one that we both really enjoyed. For me, it's at number 5 because it's I really appreciate the creativity, and I believe Lucas brought that up as well. And hey, this is a top 5, so not anything to say negatively. It's just that I just liked the other 4 better. That being said, tremendous amount of creativity. It's a DW centric episode, which I find are usually winners more than they're not. And it's just cool to see everything through DW's eyes, and the roasting that goes on in that episode is just beyond compare. So that's a real fun one. Number 4, this was actually Lucas's number 1, so it's a little bit farther down my list, but I think it needs to be said. Arthur's Faraway Friend. Now, this one, I think, gets in almost on legacy alone. I just feel like when people think of Arthur, and really think about it in depth, beyond the memes, beyond, the characters and whatnot, if you interacted with Arthur at any point in your life, especially in your childhood, I guarantee you had a feeling or two about this episode. I remember this made me cry when I was younger. It was very emotional. It was almost like Buster was saying goodbye to the series. Thankfully, that is not true. It's a really great episode, especially to show to kids who have, a friend who's moving away, which has happened with me, and I'm sure it's happened with a lot of you guys as well. And it's very emotional, it's funny, it's imaginative, and it definitely deserves a spot. All right, so we're in uncharted territory here with number 3. It's the short, quick summer. Now, I kind of debated where to kind of put this, but for me, hey, this whole podcast is based around nostalgia, right? Why would I be doing this if I wasn't at least a little nostalgic about Arthur? And I find that this episode really captures that feeling of nostalgia. It brings me back to, the summers when you didn't have anything to do, where you didn't have any responsibilities, and you wonder how such a fun time can escape from you. But then at the end, you look back and see what you did, and you realize how awesome it was, and you can't wait for the next one. It's just the joys of childhood in one 11-minute episode. I think it's great fun. I do like Arthur's kind of journey throughout it. And it gives me a real good feeling. Speaking of good feeling, we were rife with it as we get into number 2 here. It's Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers. Now, this one may not be in your top 5 personally, if you didn't grow up with Mr. Rogers, but for me, I definitely did, and many people older than me did as well, and maybe some younger too. I just think that this is a great template for what a good guest star can do in Arthur, and we're going to be seeing more and more of them as we go along. Mr. Rogers is just a one-of-a-kind personality. It's so cool to see him in this universe. And again, it leaves me with a really good feeling, and it prompted me to look up more about Fred Rogers, the man, and he was indeed the man. So, I don't know. It's a great way to start off the second season, and just one of the all-time memorable episodes of Arthur. But, and again, this was a tough call between number 2 and number 1 here. I thought that Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers would get in number 1 surely, but I had a good think about it, and although it was lower on Lucas's list, it is number 1 in my heart. It's Fern's Slumber Party. Now, I find this interesting. When we were going through our favorite episodes of Season 1, and you can check out that episode if you want to remind yourself, but it was a Binky-centric episode. It was one where we really saw his character grow, and for me, this is the same thing here. We see Fern really come into her own. We see the things she struggles with, her achievements, how smart she is, how creative she is, and you really come to root for her before the episode is over. I just think this is a terrific way of deepening a character, and I mean, this is the type of stuff that I like to watch as an adult, and it's so good to see it done well here in a kids show of all places. But of course, as you and I know, not just a kids show, but an exceptional television show. Fern's Slumber Party, I love the Murder on the Orient Express of it all, the Sherlock Holmes bit. I love the ways that it kind of breaks format with Arthur episodes, and I love Fern as a character. I identify with her in many ways. So yeah, from Binky to Fern, that is our number 1 for Season 2 of Arthur. I also want to shout out here a couple of honorable mentions. Of course, as Lucas himself said, if I, profess my love for an episode that I don't remember, that makes it into the honorable mentions, especially Buster Baxter, Cat Saver, and DW Goes to Washington. That's another iconic episode of this season. overall, season 2, I think Lucas was a lot more diplomatic about it. There were high highs and low lows of this season. I got to be honest, I was a little disappointed, especially season 1 of Arthur starts off really strong. And in season 2, I feel like we're in a little bit of a middling period. What I mean by that is, I know that from here, Arthur is, it gets more comfortable with being weird, with having episode plots that are a bit more out there. And I really want to get into that. I think it's time for Arthur to get a bit more wacky. But it felt like we were kind of in the middle between grounded and out there. So I'm ready to dive into Arthur getting a little bit more creative with some of its episodes. That said, there were some real gems in here, but there were also some duds. And, that will come with a lot of seasons. Not as strong as season 1, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement for season 3. I can't wait to go through season 3 with you. I'm just looking at, the episode titles on Wikipedia. Man, even by the title, I know that we've got some good ones. The next one, our next full episode, is going to be awesome. I'm really excited, and I can't wait for you to come along with us into season 3. I would love to know also what you thought of season 2. Do you have a top 5 Arthur episodes for this season? I encourage you to reach out to me and Lucas and let us know, and we will happily read your feedback however we get it. Now, how do you give us feedback? I will tell you. You can go to facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. Send us a DM on the down low. On Twitter @ECL Podcast. Same thing. DM us or just tweet at us. Tumblr, elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. Keep sending those asks. Love getting them. And also elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Please send in your emails. Love getting those emails. And of course, if you want to keep listening to this podcast, you can find us on Apple Music podcasts. You can find us on iTunes. Elwood City Limits. Make sure to give us a rating and review if you haven't already. That helps more people find us. It's funny. I was going through the recommended podcasts that are, if you like this podcast, you might like this. And the podcast we're in, quote unquote, company with is real cool. That's all thanks to the ratings and reviews we've gotten. And please, if you haven't done it yet, it just takes a couple of minutes. You can do it on your device. I would also appreciate it if you check this out on Google Play. You can do that there as well. If there's any other service you'd like us to be a part of, please let us know through contacting us through one of the ways I mentioned. Finally, on the web, elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com. Libsyn spelled Libsyn. You can find all the episodes there for streaming as well. Okay, so before we get into what's happening next week, I just want to make this quick announcement. Now, I'm the type of person where, I don't like to announce things until they are set in stone. Lucas and I have some changing circumstances in our lives, and it is the holiday season, so things are going to get busier. But I'm very committed. I want to do this, and I want to get this to you in time for the holiday season. So sometime in December, and trust me, I will tell you, we are going to be releasing a very special commentary track for something that you may be watching this holiday season. Lucas and I are going to be releasing a commentary track for Arthur's Perfect Christmas. A lot of people asked us last December, are you going to review Arthur's Perfect Christmas? What are you going to do with that? And it is an hour long, so it could be a really long episode. But instead of that, we're going to be talking over it. We're going to be making some jokes. And so if you're watching Arthur's Perfect Christmas this holiday season, you can watch it. It's like me and Lucas are in the room with you. I'm stoked for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm excited to watch it with Lucas. And yeah, we will be releasing that. Details of that will, of course, come once it's all said and done. But look out for that this December. And I'm going to use that as the thing to hold me to doing that commentary track. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. But before we get into Season 3, Lucas and I very amped for the first episode back. Next week, we are going to be having something a little different. Before we head into Season 3, Next week, I had a special guest on with me recently, and we talked about a rather unusual episode of Arthur, one that you won't find on your local PBS affiliate. In fact, you have to go to the depths of YouTube, and before that, it was only seen by only a couple of eyes who had a certain VHS. Next week, myself and special guest Susan Velasquez are going to be talking about Arthur's new friend, Andy. So seek that out on YouTube. Susan is awesome. She writes text reviews of Arthur, and it was so fun to talk about this episode with her. She's great. I can't wait for you to hear this episode. Arthur's new friend, Andy, we'll be talking about it next week. We've got the commentary coming in December, and as always, Season 3 is on the way. Thanks to my buddy Lucas for his thoughts on Season 2. Thank you for supporting us as always. This is Will Young, and you'll hear from me next week on Elwood City Limits.